check on the MIC. Hi, friends. Welcome. My name is Dean, and here we go. Of course, this podcast brought to you by our friends at Muse on the Mic. Great podcast about women in the industry. It's bingo month all month. Go to Muse on the Mic or MuseMassageSpa.com today. Go and subscribe. CanTorque, the makers of incredible torque wrenches. Yes, bolting solutions nobody else has worldwide. They are Canadian, so go to CanTorque.com today. And, of course, Ed's Fine Imports, his Gitch are the best, branded underwear, boxer briefs, pouch in the front, made for Canadians, so the pouch is a little bigger than most. In Canada, there you go, and welcome to the program. So nice to have everybody around. We had some things go on here in the past 24 to 48 hours. We've got Ukraine to get to. We had some kind of explosion at the Niagara border between the United States and Canada. That was big news, and everybody's freaking out about that. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to get into a little Israel-Gaza stuff, and I brought a little friend with me. As a matter of fact, big friend. He's Emmy Award-winning. He's also a legend in the industry. Please welcome my friend and yours from the Charles Adler podcast, Mr. Charles Adler. Sir, before we get to the business of the business, before we start talking about news, if you will. That's what when I first got into radio, they're like, it's not news, it's news.
News. You always have to sound like you're really constipated. News.
Not news. Read the news. 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 Yeah, remember those air checks? News. Say it with me. News.
The things that the wizards of radio really cared about. Oh, God. Where's the Metamucil?
Yeah, exactly. I don't miss those little things people don't know about radio. I want to get to that, but I also want to talk about the CFL and the Grey Cup in just a second. But to your point, Charles and I are old radio dogs. Charles is the gold standard when it comes to syndicated radio hosts here in this country. He's done bigger and better things than anybody that I know in this industry and poured it into the States. But we all cut our chops the same way, sitting in some guy's office who was shit at the job, right? Total shit at the job. And he was telling us these things in these little meetings that all jocks had when radio was cool called air checks. Now, these air checks were a guy telling a guy like Charles who made maybe a fifth, a tenth of what Charles made being a professional communicator going, okay, let's sit down and talk about your program and what we can do to make it better. And you're like, dude, you are not fucking qualified.
Yeah. No, there are certain signs you get in your life telling you whether you're malevolent or benevolent. Mm-hmm. And I learned how benevolent I was by not slicing the throats of the degenerates I worked for. I kept them alive. I humored them. At times I'd even say things like, amen, or 100%, chief.
That's tomorrow. We'll clean that right up for you. Yeah. My thing is that anytime you're in an air check and they were like, I remember one air check, my boss is like, after he's like, you have to say news, not news. He's like, and can you stop saying the word douchebag? And I'm like, why? He's like, because we got 100 complaints yesterday. And I'm like, okay, show them to me. He's like, no. And I'm like, because you didn't get one, did you? You just don't like the word.
Show me the FM jock, okay?
Yeah.
Doing a rock show aimed at guys between the ages of 18 and 49. Show me any of them that have ever gotten a complaint from a legitimate listener for using D-bag.
Yeah. There's never been one.
Notice I didn't say the word.
Yeah, I know you can't because you're better than me.
The audience that I was targeting wasn't male 18 to 49. It was a lot broader than that. You know, it was everyone at the shopping center, you know. whether you're sweeping the shopping center or you own one of those Chanel number 5 stores or whatever. Yeah. By the way, is it Chanel number 5 or Chanel 5?
That's a great question. I'm going to have to ask my girlfriend. She would know.
A question that only about 1% of the audience might care about. But if you can email me, charles@charlesadler.com. I want to know if it's Chanel number 5
or Chanel 5
or Chanel 5. Give me
I think it's Chanel number 5. I've never heard Chanel 5 before. Not that I care, but I know I think it's number 5. I think you crushed it off the start there, Chuck. I think you nailed it. Yeah. Can I ask you a question before we get rolling into the business of the business?
Whatever you need. Amen.
Thanks, buddy.
Amen,
I appreciate
it.
Okay. Are you a CFL fan? Did you watch?
Oh yeah.
Great.
Yeah. No,
you are.
I have spent enough time in Western Canada, so I haven't just sipped the Kool-Aid. I've,
inhaled it.
IV. Yeah, like a jock bowl at a frat party. Give me more.
Yeah.
More Kool-Aid.
CFL is the Canadian Football League, 3-down football. It's older than the NFL, significantly older
Yes.
than the NFL.
Yeah,
And there
very
was
much
a time,
older, yeah.
which is weird because there was a time, if I'm not mistaken, where the CFL, like players in the CFL got paid way more than players in the NFL. And like right at the start of the CFL, the NFL and the CFL. And then there was another
Okay.
time where I remember thinking to myself, yeah, the CFL, like Warren Moon, you remember Neil Lumsden? I'm buddies with his son Jesse still. He's
Joe
still a legend.
Theismann.
Joe Theismann played in the league. Rakib Ishmael played in the league. Like, there's some big names, but like I can't watch it to save my life now. I don't know what it is.
Because you're in Toronto now. I mean, when you were in, Three Pitchforks, Alberta, was it Three Pitchforks or Three Hills?
Calgary. Three Hills. Calgary, Drumheller. Those are the three pitchforks.
I thought you went to some witch doctor school somewhere in rural Alberta.
Yeah, Christian school. Yeah, Three Hills, the Prairie Bible Institute. Yeah, from grade 10 to grade 12. Totally propagandized. Yeah.
Listen, you haven't lived until you've been indoctrinated by the odd witch doctor and given Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
So the CFL. So because I've spent a lot of time in Western Canada, specifically Alberta and Manitoba, I became a huge CFL fan. And of course, the game on Sunday, I was naturally rooting for the Bombers. And it's irrelevant that at one time I was living in Montreal. I haven't been a Montrealer for a long time, and I'm very much a Western Canadian. So I'm rooting for the West. I'm rooting for Winnipeg. And in the last minutes of the fourth quarter, this was just fantastic CFL ball, and any NFLer would tell you the same. It was just fantastic football. It was so fantastic that I forgot who I was rooting for. I was just ensconced in the game. And that tells most of us who are genuine sports fans.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not talking about the groupies, not talking about the people who are trying to say pathetically not profound things on radio, sports talk shows, and all that kind of stuff, just about regular sports fans. If you're a regular sports fan, the game is always bigger than the individual player and the team. It's the game. I love the game of hockey, and I love the game of football. And the Montreal Alouettes were given a great game, and they absolutely deserve to win the game. And it doesn't matter who I root for. I root for the game.
Yeah, and it's funny because purists like you that love the CFL, and listen, I didn't even know who won the Grey Cup until this morning. Like, I had no idea. And we put out like stories on it. Like, we have guys covering, we have people there, and I'm like, I've been busy, I've been sick, all this other stuff. And I'm not a CFL guy, but that's the truth.
No, you're a Toronto guy. I get it. And in Toronto, listen, I've lived in Toronto, I don't know, 3 times, 4 times. They keep bringing them back. It's like,
are we elitist douchebags about that stuff? Is that the point? Is that what you're saying? You want to go D-bag?
No, they just keep bringing me back to TO, and I guess I'm a little greedy. I take the money. They roll the truck up and they unload the truck. So I take the money, and then after 6 months or a year or two, I start missing the West again. I miss the big sky, the big relatively clean sky when we don't have a wildfire. Yeah. But in Toronto, I mean, I wanted to talk about the CFL, and I was just told by everybody, including the most important people, the listeners, Chuck, we don't care.
Do it. It's a ratings. It's a ratings killer. Don't talk about it.
We don't care. We don't care. So the CFL is just kind of like a private party in Toronto. And when I guess when radio stations get the rights to broadcast like the Argos, do they? You would know this because you've been inside the belly of the beast. Do they actually have to pay for those rights, or do the Argos pay them to air the games?
You know what? I'm pretty sure the Argos pay. I'm almost positive that there are like maybe 2 CFL teams who, taking this back to like, broadcasting, which we understand, and how much money there is in broadcast licensing certain games. I'm almost 100% positive the Toronto Argonauts actually have to pay.
Okay.
In most cases,
the idea is in most cases, radio stations have to pay.
Yeah.
And sometimes through the nose to get broadcast rights for whether it's hockey or football. But the Argos are a different deal. Not many people support them because the CFL is just uncool, because there is still this thing going on in Toronto. People are still waiting for the NFL to show up. And my position on it is simple. The CFL is damn good football. Nothing stops you from watching the NFL. Nothing stops you from going to Buffalo. And if you do, please don't put the pedal to the metal and make your car airborne That works better in the movies. So please don't do that if you are going to Buffalo.
Did you see that? Big news today, and I want to
Yeah.
get to it, which is fascinating. There was a car that somehow detonated, either intentional or accidental. It was in Buffalo Peace Bridge. Here's a little clip or just a little video. Laura Loomer. There you go. I'll get to that in just a second. But here's the aftermath. This is right at the Peace Bridge, Rainbow Peace Bridge in Buffalo. If you're familiar with Niagara Falls, obviously it's got two sides to it. The falls is on the Canadian side. Yes, we do own it. Bottom line is that the American side had a car leave a casino not far from the border, and it was going like 100 miles an hour towards this thing, out of control, went flying into an actual like CBP kiosk, and it exploded. I've got the actual video. I'll play it for you here. It's kind of wild. And then I want to get to some of the details because everybody's co-opting this, as you know, everybody does, right? Like that's the big thing. It's like, hey, how can we take something terrible that happened at the border and we can turn it into possibly some fear porn? Bottom line is we don't really know about it. It happened not too long ago. But here's the actual CCTV version, which I find interesting because it doesn't really say a whole lot. Like the CCTV version of what we're going to watch is legitimately, it just looks like flotsam and jetsam from some kind of like propane tank explosion, but this was a car. We'll watch it together. You can't really hear anything from it. Here you go. This is in Buffalo. There you go. Boom. You can see pieces of debris flying.
Yeah.
Can't tell if it was, which is two narratives that are going around. It's either intentional or not. Two narratives. You can't tell if it was an explosion. You can't tell if it was a detonation, meaning intentional, or if it was an out-of-control car, an accidental and intentional because they wanted to actually fly that thing into the border. So what do you make of it? Because the response has been incredible. I'll get to a couple of quick stories here. Authorities say the registered owner of the vehicle is uncertain number of passengers, thought it was one or two. Law enforcement officials conducted a video canvass of the surrounding area in the hours since the incident occurred. The car appears to have been in a nearby New York casino before the incident, so maybe this guy lost his shirt and decided to end it all. Who knows? But I found this interesting. A couple little tidbits. Toronto police increased patrols throughout the city for an abundance of caution due to today's incident at the Canadian-U.S. border. They'll be increasing direct patrolled uniformed officers throughout the city. Toronto police said in a post, this is out in an abundance of caution. A couple of mosques in the Buffalo area shut down as well. We all know the heat around Israel, Gaza. Like, we all know that people are crazy and the world's divided and nutbags do shit like this, but we don't know the intentionality behind this, Chuck, like at all.
We don't know that either, and I guess we could throw into the woodpile that it's Thanksgiving weekend. I want in the United States, I just want to thank, whatever forces are in play for the fact, this was not a car heading from Canada to the States. We don't get paranoid when somebody, blows up their car in the United States. They may have been on their way to Canada. It was at the border, so chances are that's what they wanted to do. We don't get too paranoid about it, but if it had been the other way around, if the shoe had been on the other foot, if the tires had been on the Canadian side of the border, blowing up a car just before crossing into the United States, that it wouldn't just be Fox. There'd just be a lot of American paranoia right now, and people would say, we got to seal the border. We got to build a wall and make the Mexicans pay for it, or the Lithuanians or the Canadians. We got to build a wall to prevent those dangerous Canadians from driving their dangerous cars into the United States.
Well, that's kind of what Laura Loomer said, and this is why I got the tweet out. And I know she's basically, the incredibly thick version of the Village Idiot. But she said more footage of the massive explosion that just went off of the U.S.-Canada border. We are under attack. Again, taking that narrative and saying that the United States is under attack from Canada, and someone decided to detonate something at the border. And it actually came, as you pointed out, from New York. They were trying to get into Canada. But
they were at a casino. They were at an American casino, probably losing their shirts.
Yeah.
Probably drinking and losing and drinking and losing and driving. By the way, Dean, this may not be the most important aspect of the story, but was that a Bentley? Did they blow up a Bentley?
I don't know. I was looking at some of the wreckage. Here's a really cool picture. Some of the wreckage is pretty nice. Like you can see a bumper there. I think you can see a chair there. It's impossible to tell because the wreckage is so severe.
Well, I don't mean to sound like a member of the Laurentian elite, but for all these people who are into digital populism.
Yes.
Is Chuck part of the Laurentian elite? Is he part of the WEF? Is he part of the RCMP? Is he with Red China? Anyway, so I don't mean to sound like an elitist, but there ought to be a special law against destroying a Bentley.
Yeah, there should be. I don't know what kind of car it was, but if he just left a casino and lost it all, it's probably a Civic or something like that.
No, I think
smart gamblers don't drive Bentleys.
Well, just a couple of friends of mine who have a lot of glue, and I'm not talking about what they sniff.
Yeah.
They were asking me because they think, and I don't know where they got the word. They're probably on the wrong social media site, but two of these guys think that it was a Bentley, and they're upset. And in their behalf, okay, being a lobbyist for the rich elite. There ought to be a law against destroying a Bentley.
I think there should be too, and I think there should be a law against destroying Porsches because I'm a big Porsche fan as well.
Yeah. And we can't prosecute these guys because they're dead.
Yeah, two guys, and they're trying to figure that out now. They like the wreckage was so severe. They're like, we don't know if it was one person or two. We're really not too sure. But the FBI is investigating. CSIS is also investigating. Here's kind of what we know. They say 2 people were killed, video reviewed, which we saw a vehicle entering the bridge on the U.S. side, then accelerating at a high rate of speed. Obviously, a very serious situation, said the Canadian Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc told reporters on Wednesday. They were in question period today. And I want to play this for you because I find this kind of interesting because the way it was framed during question period and the exchange between PP. I know you're too high-minded to call Pierre Poilievre PP, so I'll do it. Just like you can't say douchebag. No problem. I got that covered. Yeah. But PP wasted no opportunity to call this a terrorist attack. And I got to admit, I got caught up in this, and I put out a tweet saying, "Statistic terror attack."
You've done something that PP never does. You
apologize.
You apologize.
Yeah. I said, "Hey, sorry, jumped the gun. I really apologize," because it's just kind of a disingenuously stupid thing to do.
No, you see a car blowing up near a border, and you think
there's only one reason.
It might be terrorism.
But then I remembered, and it was funny because I remember. I'll get to this clip in a second. I don't remember from this like 10, 15 years ago. This truck driver that was watching porn on his phone. And he flew right into the border. Same thing, Peace Bridge a number of years ago, and killed a bunch of people because he was watching pornography as he was like driving his car, and his thing got stuck. So I'm like, okay, well, let's back off. Let's talk about the options, see what's going on. But Mr. Poilievre wasted no time calling this a terror attack, and I'm not saying it wasn't. But it was interesting because Prime Minister Justin Trudeau really treated this with kid gloves. Kind of answered the question between this little exchange with the two, and then he had to beat it. I want to play this.
But we should remind people that Justin Trudeau has a security clearance, okay? And people with security clearances see a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
They tend to be a little more careful than guys like Pierre Poilievre who have a phone and Laura Loomer's account on their Twitter.
Yeah, let's watch it. That's a very good point. We'll get to that in a second. Here's the video. Let's watch it together.
Mr. Speaker, we've just heard media reports of a terrorist attack, an explosion at the Niagara crossing of the Canada-U.S. border. At least two people are dead. One is injured. It is the principal responsibility of government to protect the people. Can the Prime Minister give us an update on what he knows and what action plan he will immediately implement to bring home security for our people?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is obviously a very serious situation in Niagara Falls. There was a vehicle explosion at the Rainbow Bridge crossing. I've been briefed by the NSIA and the Minister of Public Safety. CBSA, RCMP, and Transport Canada are all fully engaged in providing the necessary support. There are a lot of questions, and we are following up to try and get as many answers as rapidly as possible. We are in close contact with U.S. officials, and we'll continue to work closely with them. We will continue to be engaged. We will provide updates. Updates I can give right now is there are 4 border crossings that are right now closed: Rainbow Bridge, Whirlpool Bridge, Queenston Bridge, and Peace Bridge. Additional measures are being contemplated and activated at all border crossings across the country. We are taking this extraordinarily seriously, and Mr. Speaker, I will have to excuse myself now to go get further updates and work on this very serious situation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, good. We all clapped. That's nice.
One of them came across as Prime Minister.
Yeah. Trudeau.
The Prime Minister actually looked and sounded like a Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And the other guy just sounded like a I don't know, a small market talk show host looking for a click.
Well, is that not what you heard? Because what I heard, he's like, A,
yeah.
he calls it a terrorist attack, Chuck, and then B, he's like, and it's your job to keep us safe what's going on, and C, that's something you mentioned prior to actually playing the clip, Pierre Poilievre, PP, cannot get security clearance to get that information, and so that's where he does it and uses it as an opportunity to make the government look like a bunch of a-holes, right?
Yeah.
So
I tend to prefer leaders who have security clearances.
Me too.
I know that sounds radical, and maybe to some people it sounds like the Laurentian elite, but security clearances do matter. I don't know why he thinks that that it doesn't. It's really, really odd. I mean, he has said something to the effect of if he had a security clearance, he wouldn't be as free to talk about stuff.
How does that even work? Like, and it's funny because I point that out in clips to your point. I'm like, he can't get security clearance because he won't sit for his NSICOP top secret security clearance. He refuses to do it because he's at a material change in circumstance, meaning he's married into a certain family. We'll let sleeping dogs lie. His relationships. I mean, there are lots of reasons people will go, yeah, I'm good. But what he said was, listen, that's a trap. I'm not going to get security clearance for any of these things because I'll not be able to inform the Canadian public of things I'm not aware of. How does that work?
I won't be able to offer information on things I don't know anything about. That says a lot about the level of respect he has for the audience. You know, listen, I worked with some sluts in news. Excuse me, news, sluts in news. And their attitude is the story is too good to check. So if the story looks like terrorism because a car blew up at a border crossing on a U.S. Thanksgiving weekend, that's enough for me. Let's just declare it terrorism. And that's the kind of thing that if you're, what I'll call a small market talk show host or a less than Einstein IQ talk show host, that's fine. Now, I don't need for the opposition leader to be Einstein. I just need him to be just a little bit better than declaring something terrorism when he doesn't have a freaking clue.
And can't get a clue because he refuses to sit for the approval process to have a clue, right? Am I wrong? I find it odd.
I'm beside myself. I don't understand why people who are really, really well-connected conservatives don't, take him to the woodshed on that.
I don't know, man. And they did some weird shit again, too. Did you see the Ukraine support bill vote? Did you see that?
And especially if we're talking about the prairie, I don't want to get back into the CFL because I know that a lot of people don't care about the CFL. But I got to tell you that just as the prairie is highly attached to the CFL, the prairie, because many Ukrainian Canadians live on the prairie, is highly connected to the cause of saving Ukraine from the authoritarian in the Kremlin, sometimes known as Vlad. Okay, Vlad the Horrible, Vladimir Putin. Okay, this genocidal dictator is generally allied only with other authoritarians and some members of the American right wing. Now, for some reason, Pierre Poilievre, the guy who doesn't have a clue and won't get a clue and won't get a security clearance, decided to vote against Ukraine, voted against helping Ukraine. And I know that that's a vote that Vladimir Putin appreciates, but not too many people here on the prairie do.
No, and you bring up a good point. If you've ever been to Vegreville, Alberta, if you've ever been to the heart of Saskatchewan, if you've ever been to northern Alberta, Peace River is another area where there are a bunch of beautiful Ukrainian people that have celebrated being able to be their own community, being able to love this country and do what they did in Ukraine here, which is agriculture, farm the land, incredible respect for the country. and that's where his support base is the biggest, right? Is in Western Canada. So, like, to shoot himself in the foot, Karina Gould came out after the vote, and the vote was this. It says, can we have a bill between Canada and the United States that offers a free trade agreement so we can help the people of Ukraine when it comes to being able to support them with aid packages, support financial, trade, otherwise, right? That free-flowing ability to be able to do commerce between two countries, specifically one country that's been invaded by Russia. So the conservatives, every single one of them, voted against that support. And these same conservatives that are literally riding high in Western Canada and using that to pull their way into making everybody think it's going to be a whitewash. But let's watch the video. This is Karina Gould, and we'll get to it. Hey, let's have a listen.
An agreement that demonstrates Canada's solidarity, our commitment to Ukraine fighting for their freedom, for their sovereignty. This agreement is about supporting the rebuilding of Ukraine, and every single Conservative member of Parliament voted against it. I have to say, I am in complete shock about this. I thought there was solidarity amongst Canadians. I believe, in fact, there is solidarity amongst Canadians. But Conservative members of Parliament have shown their true colours. It is clear to me why Mr. Poilievre has not uttered a single word in support of Ukraine. This demonstrates their lack of commitment to people who are fighting for their freedom and their sovereignty. I think Ukrainian Canadians should be concerned about this. They should be asking, what is going on with the Conservative Party of Canada? Why would they vote against something that the government of Ukraine has asked the government of Canada to do in a moment when they are under siege, when they are under threat, when they are fighting for their lives and fighting for their country? Mr. Poilievre purports to stand for freedom, but he clearly does not stand for freedom for people around the world. Thank you.
There you go. Vote. By the way, vote passed because it had unanimous support among the other parties. These guys were the only a-holes. You pointed something out, and I want to ask you a question about it with your tweet. Many U.S. right-wing politicians, not to mention right-wing icons like Tucker Carlson, seem to be members of the Vladimir Putin fan club. With this vote, Pierre Poilievre earns his membership. Vlad P, meet Pierre P. He wants to be your friend, and he's proving it. Why would they vote against that aid package for Ukraine? And is it true that he has not said a word about the support of that country and the people in that country? I wasn't aware of that.
Poilievre and his crew are saying, I don't know how to say this with a straight face. I know the Rubes buy this, but they're telling their members, they're telling their base, that this is about the carbon tax, that they voted against this bill because it wasn't doing something for their desire to kill the carbon tax. Whatever.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
That's what they're saying. I mean,
but I don't understand. What would the carbon tax?
At the best of times, because somehow they're connecting the carbon tax to this bill. I don't know if it means that this bill means that Canadians, in sending whatever relief they send to Ukraine, will have to pay some sort of carbon tax. I don't know, because I don't care, because I know the people who put out the spin. And I know that it never has to do with facts. So I'm not going to research something that isn't fact-based. I'm just telling you that's the spin, that they voted against this because they're against the carbon tax.
So not only does that not make any sense at all, and not only can you not connect the two, my question to you then is, if that's the case, if they're like, because of that reason over there, what's the real reason, and what is the message that sends?
Well, there is a real reason. I mean, the sort of the big picture with Conservatives is that Trudeau gives away too much money to foreign causes, sends too much money out of the country, and a Conservative government won't do that. And that's really what this is about. But he didn't want to say that because it's Ukraine. So Ukraine is a sacred cow for all of the reasons that we stated a few moments ago. So Pierre Poilievre doesn't want to say that he wants to rip off Ukraine because he wants to put it in the same bucket as all of the other countries that the Conservatives say they won't give money to, unlike the Liberals. So he just makes up this phony baloney about he's opposed to the carbon tax, and the Liberals didn't respect his position on the carbon tax. That's why he voted against the bill.
So he tells everybody to vote against the bill in hopes of penalizing the people of Ukraine in some way, shape, or form.
Well, no, it's not about Ukraine. He doesn't care about Ukraine. Doesn't care about anything. He cares about winning elections. He cares about clicks. He cares about constantly keeping the base angry and upset. And the carbon tax is the button that he pushes on a regular basis. When the carbon tax ceases to upset people, he'll stop pushing that button. But it wouldn't matter what this bill was about. This bill could be about, restoring the good health of jackasses. And he would vote against it because he's into this jackass thing about the carbon tax. And I'm not even a big proponent of the carbon tax. I'm not one of these people who believes that, carbon taxes are reducing emissions significantly and helping in the war against global warming and all that. So I get bored with many of these causes, and I'm not big on that one, but I am not big on uncreative, shallow BS. And
So is
that's
that
what
just
this
a hat tip? Is that just a hat tip to Pootler, as they say? Is that just a hat tip to the same people in other countries that want the same thing?
Just made points, and it's not about necessarily making points with Putin, but it is to make points with those people who do want to make points with Putin. Those people who do venerate Putin. They love authoritarians around the world, including Putin. Have you ever heard Donald Trump say a negative thing about Vladimir Putin?
Never once.
Okay, so I have no idea how many hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians he has now killed. I have no idea precisely how many thousands of Ukrainian children he's kidnapped.
20,000.
But there might be a good reason to condemn Vladimir Putin. But Donald Trump and other people who are kind of Trumpy, like Tucker Carlson, never have a negative thing to say about Vladimir Putin.
Well, it's because they get money for it. That's my opinion. I mean, it's a dangerous thing to say, but
might be difficult to find Pierre Poilievre saying many negative things about.
I haven't heard anything. I mean, we have heard him say nothing positive about Ukraine. We have heard him say nothing negative about Vladimir Putin. We have watched him walk that tightrope of authoritarian friendship. The repetitive rhetoric that we hear from him when it comes to woke gender ideologies.
Oh yeah,
everything lines up, dude.
Woke. Right? He's anti-woke. Wow, what a gutsy guy. He's anti-woke.
He doesn't even know the meaning of the word, dude. It's just crazy. And
this is such Bush League politics. I mean, I as a Canadian, I'm always embarrassed about some of the stuff that is in our political system. I mean, there's so many countries talking about serious stuff when it comes to, the realm of politics, and I'm always worried that they might tune in, to Canadian politics and find us going woke.
Just one of the same. And it was funny because, you can lean into the authoritarian stuff and you can see the support for different things or the lack of support for certain things. And watching him go hard in the paint the other day, against really, the innocents or the people in Gaza, his incredibly militant support of certain things. And you had a tremendous interview with Tasha Karidian in your latest podcast talking about some of the essentials and what's going on in that area of the world. And I found it interesting because, it almost seems like we're in this virtue signaling political phase, right? Where, we're not here to help. We're not here to find solutions. We're just here to figure out a way that we can bastardize really terrible things. And I think about the hostage thing, right? Like I watched Pierre Poilievre, release the hostages. And to your point about Ukraine, hasn't said an effing, and I did that for you, effing word.
Yes, thank you.
20,000 Ukrainian children who were kidnapped and they're still missing. Not a word.
No.
Not a word.
Thanks for leaving out your favorite word, uck.
You're welcome.
You left out uck.
I did it for you.
Appreciate that. Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. You're welcome.
Uck you, my friend. Anyway, so here it is. Tasha Karidian is on with us. Tasha Karidian writes columns for the National Post. She's got her own Substack. She's a former talk show host. She's an author. And, as far as conservatives go, she's definitely one of my favorite conservatives. People say, aren't you going to say anything nice about conservatives? Yeah, there are many conservatives I like, and Tasha Karidian is one of them. So I interviewed her on the podcast. You can download the podcast, go to Apple, Spotify, your favorite podcast platform, and find the Charles Adler Show podcast. And the latest episode is with Tasha Karidian. And she points out that so much of this anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, propaganda, so much of it is motivated, fueled, subsidized, paid for by China, by Russia, by Iran. And it's not even because those countries give a hoot about little Israel. They do care about being on the other side of the United States. And so they attack Israel, but what they really are attacking is the United States. And so Israel is a proxy for the United States as far as China, Russia, Iran, and some others go. And so that's what much of this is about. And she also got into the business of colonialism. It's not difficult to define colonialism. You can go to Google, and when you go to Google and you go to a little bit of history, you find out that, guess what? Iran, Russia, and China have been practicing colonialism for a very, very long time. I mean, like China gobbled up. Guess whose favorite country? The country he comes from, Tibet. Guess, the Dalai Lama, one of the nicest people on earth. His country was stolen from him by China. Why? Because China practices colonialism. Ukraine, gobbled up by the Soviet Union, which practiced colonialism. Iran, colonialism, using some of their proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and others. But the larger point is, in the Muslim world, all of these Arab Muslim nations, all of them have been practicing colonialism for the longest time. And so this idea that Israel is the bad colonial in the Middle East is ridiculous. Can some people support the idea that Israel is practicing colonialism with respect to the West Bank? Yeah, go ahead, fill your boots, make the case. But as far as colonial powers are concerned, Israel pales in comparison with so many of its enemies. And this isn't about taking sides in a conflict. I just like to take the side of, facts versus no facts. And for those people who say that Israel is the big bad colonizer in the Middle East, that's just, as Dean would say, effing ridiculous. And as far as the progressive forces, the woke forces supporting Hamas, that's beyond crazy. Unions supporting Hamas. Try to organize a union in Gaza. See if you can still hold on to your hands and feet. Women, progressive feminists, try to be a feminist. Try to get an abortion in Gaza and see what happens to you. Gay, there's a group called Queers for Palestine. Okay, you try being openly queer. You try being openly gay in Gaza and see what happens to you. So, there's a lot of hypocrisy going on and a lot of, frankly, stupidity going on. And there's one more thing about stupidity that I'd like to put a word in for, because I have a feeling with Dean Blundell, I've got a friendly platform on this.
Yes.
I am not crazy about people waving foreign flags in Canada. No, I don't want to pass a law. No, I don't want to put people in prison. But I'm a Canadian. I'm a proud Canadian. Yeah. I could hyphenate myself. I could talk about my country of origin. Dean could talk about his country of origin. We could hyphenate ourselves. We choose not to, okay? I live and breathe Canadian air. I thank Canadians for the life that I have. And do I wave a flag occasionally? Yeah. I wave a Canadian flag. And when I see people on the streets who want to support certain sides and certain conflicts, waving foreign flags, I don't mean to Archie Bunker the conversation, but it really frosts me. It gets under my skin. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to say it on your platform.
Oh man, I went hard in the paint on that the other day, and I had a quick conversation, and then today we did a podcast with Joanna Johnson, who is a real good friend. She's an educator. She's got a great podcast called Unlearn 16. And we were talking about protests. We were talking about the nature of protests and foreign protests, where people are protesting against something that is highly religious, that is nothing to do with Canadian democracy, people getting to and from work. And you know what? She changed my mind in one perspective, where she said, hey, listen, you want to go and protest something that Canada has the ability to affect change in? Do it in government offices. Don't do it in the street. Don't prevent people from getting to work. But it's a little deeper than that for me. To your point, the issue that I have is, okay, listen, I get it. You've got family or history somewhere. I'm an immigrant to this country. Your family came over here, as a result of the Holocaust, Chuck. There's an appreciation that you and I have for being allowed into this country. And I grew up with the idea, and I remember my dad saying this to me, because we were young British European people in this new country. It was freezing cold, by the way, because we immigrated to Jasper, Alberta, and then Rosetown, Saskatchewan, and it was just a mess. And I remember my dad saying to me when I was growing up, he goes, listen, there's one thing you can't do, and you cannot commit a crime in this country because you will get deported. And if you get deported, you're screwed, because we have to live and abide by the rules of the country that has allowed us in to do what we do, which is make a living, which is a better living than we'll be able to make anywhere else. We can raise you in a safe country, which we cannot do where we were from, nowhere near as safe. And keep in mind, I came from England. I mean, that's not a war-torn country. And so
I thought you were from Poland.
No, I just look Polish, and I was going to say something else. Won't say it. I just look Polish. But that's the appreciation I grew up with, and so I even grew up being an immigrant, where I would see these bumper stickers where it said I'd rather be in GBR, Great Britain, and I'm like, and I remember pulling up to someone when I was younger, going, "Well, then go back, dude." Like, go back to England. If you don't like it here, go back. I take extreme offense to people flying different flags while they're hurting people in other countries for something that's not happening here due to a variety of reasons. And I like to chalk it up to religious extremism, because it's really all we see, right? Like, you're not going to get a normal academic that go, "Hey, you want to spend your Saturday with a flag from like 20,000 miles away attached to the end of a broomstick, preventing people from getting into Mount Sinai Hospital because you're just that pissed off?" Everybody will say no and F-O, if you will, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
That's just how I feel. And you know what? There's no room for that conversation. Like, I tweeted some stuff. Everybody called me what did someone call me? A genocidal freak the other day, because I'm like,
by the way, that phrase "river to sea" is a genocidal phrase, and once again, you don't have to go to do much more than Google. You don't have to get a library card. It's not heavy lifting. River to sea means no Jews, meaning wipe out the Jews, destroy the Jews who live between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. That is called Israel. So from river to sea means wiping out Israel, wiping out the Jewish state. If that's not genocidal, sue me.
Oh, man, I appreciate that. I think a lot of people do. The support that I got from every side when I said, "Hey, you know what? Enough of the foreign bullshit on our soil," was awesome. It was shocking, almost as shocking as this Rebel News boat cruise that I was hoping you'd go on, actually.
I don't want to go near that. Don't want to go near that. No, thanks.
Are you sure? Because I thought maybe we get Chuck a couple of nice cruise wear.
I don't talk about him, and he doesn't talk about me, and that works out just dandy.
Okay, so you don't want me to play this video I got ready?
Well, you can play any video you like. I'm just not going to get into the whole conversation about that organization.
Okay. All right. Well, so I'm just was figuring. I thought maybe you might want to go for a cruise. Get enlightened.
Not into it. I like river cruises, by the way. I do. I was cruising up and down the Danube River a number of years ago.
Okay.
And I found out that while it may be the blue Danube in the movies and in music, it wasn't blue.
A little brown?
It wasn't blue. And I'm told by the old timers there, it hasn't been blue for a very long time. People throw stuff in the Danube.
Yeah, I know what they throw in the Danube too. All right, I get it. Yeah, it's the same thing with the Detroit River. You don't go swimming in that thing ever, because you'll never be able to eat cheese again.
Now, I have no idea how many hog farms are near the Danube. Probably too many.
Is that how it smelled? Anyway, thanks for doing this, dude. Appreciate it. Great to see
you. One of the reasons I love doing this show is because we always get to talk about animals.
Well, you're not going on the cruise, so
I don't like far right cruises, but I love animals.
Charles Adler's podcast. Go and download, subscribe wherever you get your fine podcast. It is excellent to see you today. As always, his 3 Minutes That Matter is a feature you need in your life. It's part of his podcast as well. It's a tremendous little 3-minute feature where he really digs into something pretty significant, and he popularizes it in a way and makes it digestible in a way nobody else can. Much like his podcast, The Conscience of Media in This Country. Go and download his podcast today. At Charles Adler is where you can find him on Twitter. You'll find everything there. CharlesAdler.com is his website. Charles@CharlesAdler.com if you want to get a hold of him. And anywhere you get your fine podcasts, including at Crier Media, crier.co. But more importantly, anywhere you see this man's name, rate, subscribe, go and join him on his journey as he tries to educate Canadians as to the humanity of the news that we receive on a daily basis. Brother, it is always good to see you. Thanks so much for taking time today.
Amen, Chief.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, the very happy Charles Adler. God, I love that guy. He sent me a picture because he lost his hat the other day. He couldn't find his hat. He's got like a black hat. He's wearing a white hat. He's like, I can't find the black one. He's like, it went into the same sock hole into the dryer. And then he sent me a picture about 20 minutes later, and he had this beautiful smile on his face. And I'm like, my God, why am I happy? I'm just looking at my friend Charles smiling. Man, I love that guy. Go and download his podcast. CharlesAdler.com is where you can find him as well. But his podcast, just pump it into any podcast hosting service, whether it's Google, Apple, Spotify, and you will find it. I highly recommend you rate, subscribe as well. Have a great day, everybody. Really appreciate you being here. As always, brought to you by our friends at Muse Massage Spa. Go to MuseMassageSpa.com. It is Babolicious Bingo month. And my friends have a great podcast. It's called Muse on the Mic. They're incredible advocates for women and men in the industry, people that work in the oldest industry in the world, how to be safe, why equality matters, and what it really means to be in that industry. So not only is the podcast tremendous, where they give you a behind the scenes look at what happens in different parlors and different places where you can go and get that service, but these girls are just absolutely brilliant. They're educated, they're smart, and you can find them at 1290 Finch Avenue West, Toronto, Ontario. You can go pay them a visit, but go and download, subscribe to their podcast as well. It's called Muse on the Mic. Emily and Riley, lovely people. We're also brought to you by our friends at Cantor, Canada's Assembly Tool Experts. New website coming very soon. If you're in the market for something that needs a bolting project, doesn't matter the scale, they have your solution. They rent, calibrate, maintain, they'll custom fabricate any industrial torque tool that you need for any bolting solution that you need a solution for. Doesn't matter if it's a nuclear, railroad, they've got it. Colin's the man. Make sure you go to their new website, which is coming soon, or just go to their website now. You can learn more by clicking on that little button and ask Colin if he can help you out. It doesn't matter where you are. They do business all over the world. He was in Dubai last week. Guy's crazy. But go there. If you need any bolting, loosening, or fastening solution, Cantork.com, Canada's assembly tool experts. And, of course, Ed's Fine Imports. His Gitch, we wear them. So can you. Luxury boxer briefs, pouch in the front. Right now, Gitch3 is your promo code. You get a free pair of underwear right now. Free pair. Totally free. Totally free. When you go to edsfineimports.com, you order 3 or more. That's right. 3 or more, you get a totally free pair of underwear. These are luxury branded underwear, people. Unbelievable waistband. I wear them all the time. No one ever complains when they see me in them. And I've got old man ass. Trust me. These things do wonders. They're like a push-up bra for your midsection, fella. So make sure you go to Ed's Fine Imports and order your pair of Gitch today. Gitch3 is your promo code. You'll get a free pair. Thanks, Ed. And thanks to our friends at Gitch for making this possible. Thanks for Charles being here as well. Thanks to you for taking some time with us. Don't forget, you can get everything we do at Crier Media. Go to crier.co today. You can also find us YouTube, Crier Media on YouTube, Dean Blundell Show on YouTube, at It's Dean Blundell on Twitter, Crier Media around the social horn. Have a great time today, everybody. Love the ones you love. I say, love the one you love, the one, something like that. Anyway, just be nice to each other today if you can. Have a wonderful day. Bye, friends.